Let us be still a moment. Lay aside the journey you have made to get here, the planning, the clock, the breath that hurried, and let the breath return to you. We come into this hour not to add another lesson to the mind, but to enter a sanctuary that is ever present, whether in a chapel or a kitchen or a crosswalk. The purpose of our work together is the development of spiritual consciousness, the ability to see that which is invisible, to hear that which is inaudible, to know that which cannot be known by sense, and to let that inner knowing govern the outer scene. Be still and know that I am God. We begin there. Now, we live in a day of pings and knocks, banners across the screen, voices at the door, crises that call themselves urgent and make their bid for our attention. We have been trained to call them interruptions, and with that one word we turn them into enemies of our peace. But is it so? Is there any hour in which God is absent? Is there any place where the kingdom is not at hand? If God is omnipresent, then God is where the text arrives, where the child calls, "Come," where the stranger's eye meets yours in the market. Our error has not been that we are interrupted. Our error has been that we have named the form and missed the presence. Hear me gently and hear me firmly. From this moment on, never refuse a call. I do not mean moral busyness. I do not mean that you stretch your calendar and your nerves until you are a hero of exhaustion. Oh, no. I mean, never refuse a call in the sense of turning away from the opportunity to recognize the presence, to let the Father within do the work, to shift from personal reaction to spiritual recognition. The command is not to run. The command is to recognize, I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. If that is true of the Master, how much more must it be true of us who bear his name? The call you want to avoid may be the exact place the presence is waiting to be recognized. Consider the scripture, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock." What if the knocking is not an intrusion, but the voice of life seeking recognition through the very doorbell that disturbed your reading? What if every small cry of the day, every email, subject line that tempts a sigh, every wounded tone on the end of a line is, in essence, the Christ saying, "May I be acknowledged here"? We have called interruptions enemies. Let us rename them invitation. We have treated the call as a thief of time. Let us discover it as the gift of God's own self, revealing itself as demand, so that it may reveal itself as supply. Do you feel the resistance in the mind that says, "But I am tired, my list is full, not now"? That voice is the personal sense of I speaking, and we will deal with it. But tonight at the doorway, let us make only this shift. We will not meet the next knock with the old habit. We will not meet it from personal sense. When the phone rings, let the first movement be inner, not outer. Turn within, even before you answer. One breath, one silent remembrance. Father, what is yours to do here, do through me. If I go not away, the personal sense, the busy self, the comforter will not come. So let the busy self go away for a breath, and let the comforter come to the very place the calendar calls an interruption. This is our foundation. No drama, no strain, a quiet readiness, an inner "here am I." For when you discover that God is the substance of every call, interruptions cease to be thieves and become sacraments. Let us be still once more. We do not promise to say yes to every request, but we do pledge to say yes to presence in every request. And as we proceed this week, we will learn what it is to answer not with our energy, but with the authority of the one who knocks and answers in the same breath. Now let us be very simple, very clear, so that the heart need not be burdened with fuzzy commandments. What, then, is a call? If you think it is only the ring of a telephone or the name shouted down a hallway, you will miss 9 out of 10. A call is any moment that asks you to choose between the reflex of the personal I and the recognition of the presence. It may come as a child's cry, a colleague's demand, a stranger's glance, the sudden memory that will not release you, or a hush within that whispers, "Turn here." It may arrive as a notification on a screen or as the absence of expected news. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, says the Master. Therefore, the faculty we are cultivating is not to become more busy, but to become more attuned, that we may hear amid the clamor the tone that is His. Not every request is yours to fulfill, but every request is yours to meet from the standpoint of spirit before you decide what to do. Not every knock is to be answered with your hands, but every knock is to be recognized with your heart. Not every interruption is your assignment, but every interruption is your altar, because it gives you a place to practice the presence, to remember the source, and to see through the appearance to the activity of God. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. To judge righteous judgment is to pause, to turn within, to let the Father bear witness to Himself in that very place that seems to demand your strength. The working definition of spiritual consciousness must be anchored now, for without it we drift into pious busyness. Spiritual consciousness is the ability to perceive the invisible, to hear the inaudible, to know what sense testimony denies. In other words, to recognize God's activity where the senses report only disturbance, lack, threat, or demand. When the inbox erupts, when the voice trembles on the other end, when the body reports fatigue, spiritual consciousness is the quiet eye that beholds the kingdom of God within even there. It does not argue with the storm. It sees through it. It does not manufacture an answer. It discovers the answer present. The kingdom of God is within you. If that is true, the call is never outside your peace. It is the classroom in which your peace proves itself. Oh no, we are not learning busyness. We are learning responsiveness without loss of peace. We are not adding more to do. We are subtracting the false doer. We are not becoming more available to human pressure. We are becoming more transparent to divine presence. The practical aim is this, that in the instant of demand, the first movement is Godward. And in that movement there is a sorting, a sifting, a gentle but real separation of noise from summons. Noise triggers the nervous system. A summons touches the heart with a note of recognition. Noise rushes. A summons ripens. Noise says, hurry or else. A summons says, be still and know. And because we learn to be still first, action, if any, is born of inner authority, not outer compulsion. Let us make it operational. A call presents. The habit is to answer it with our history, our opinions, our fatigue, our fear. Instead, in that fraction of a moment, let us withdraw a personal claim. One breath is enough. Father, what is yours to be here, be. In that breath, the Comforter comes. Sometimes the guidance is to speak, sometimes to wait, sometimes to redirect, sometimes to say, not mine, and pass it lovingly on, sometimes to step in with a word, a hand, a silence. But always, always, we have met it in God first, and therefore the outcome is no longer ours to carry. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Standing still is not inertia, it is surrender of the personal will so that right motion may appear. So a call is not the noise that batters the senses. A call is the invitation in the midst of that noise to awaken the faculty that sees that which is invisible and hears that which is inaudible. When that faculty is active, the pressure evaporates, the tyranny of the immediate breaks, and another atmosphere enters the room. Then whether you go or stay, say yes or say no, write the email now or tomorrow. You do it as one who has already obeyed the true summons, the recognition of God present. And in that obedience, the day ceases to pull you apart because you are no longer a person meeting 1,000 claims. You are a transparency through which one presence meets itself, and peace, quiet, steady, practical peace does not leave you while you are about the Father's business. Let us be frank and gentle at once. If we are honest about the little winces, the quick refusals, the rationalized delays that sound so sensible, we will find beneath them a single root, the belief that life, strength, attention, goodwill, and time originate in a personal I, and therefore must be budgeted, rationed, guarded. My time, we say, my energy, we sigh, my bandwidth, we calculate, and in those two small letters, my, we have made a universe of separation, a cosmos in which God is somewhere else, supply is outside, and we are left to count coins of minutes as if we were paupers before a stingy sky. But hear the psalmist, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Here again, my times are in thy hand. If the earth and its fullness are the Lord's, if our very times are in his hand, what is this my we think we must protect? We refuse calls, not because we are wicked, but because we are afraid of depletion, of being used, of being unseen, of the list getting longer while our day seems to get shorter. We resent what feels like theft. We brace to keep the river from taking what we believe we only have a thimble of. But notice the hidden arithmetic. It assumes that life is a personal possession and that presence is an occasional visitor. With that premise, refusal becomes self-preservation, and acceptance, we imagine, spells loss. Oh no, that is not the arithmetic of the kingdom. This is the day which the Lord hath made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. If the Lord made this day, if this hour belongs to God, then it cannot be stolen from us, for it was never ours to own. It can only be used by God through us, as us, when we stop clutching it. Now I give you the key that opens the iron door. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. That is not a confession of weakness. It is emancipation. It is the end of self-management as a religion. When you accept that of your own self, you can do nothing. You have at the same instant accepted that the inexhaustible one is the doer within you. You need not ration the infinite. You need not hoard hours when the life that fills them is without beginning or end. The kingdom of God is within you. If that is true, then the pressure to protect your time loosens its grip, because what must be protected is no longer personal minutes, but holy awareness. Our refusals, then, are often attempts to preserve a false independence. We say, if I do not look out for me, who will? And by that sentence, we exile ourselves from the very comforter appointed to bear our yoke. We lock the gate of our peace from the inside. And what is the cost? The mind that guards must also calculate. The will that says no from fear must also carry the weight of making everything come out right. The heart that hoards will resent what it keeps. You cannot serve God and mammon. You cannot serve the presence and also the ledger of a personal schedule as your God. One will always master the other. Serve the ledger, and you will live counting, comparing, defending, and you will call it wisdom. Serve God, and you will live yielding, discerning, responding, and you will call it grace. Do not mistake me, this is not an exhortation to become a doormat for human demands. Oh no. It is the invitation to let the personal sense of I go away, that the Comforter may come to the very scene that asks for you. When the reflex to refuse rises, let that be your bell. In that instant, lay down the myth of ownership. Father, My times are in thy hand. It is not mine to protect, it is thine to express. In that prayer, the false independence dissolves, and with it the fear of depletion. Sometimes the next movement will be a quiet, loving, not now, but you will know it is God's not now, spoken from peace, not from self-protection. Sometimes it will be yes, and the strength will be there because the source is there. Either way, you have refused only one thing, the tyranny of the personal I, and you have kept the one thing needful, the consciousness of presence. That alone preserves peace. And now, since we have laid down that false owner of time, let us pick up what has been ours from the beginning, the comforter within. The help you need is not primarily in better control of circumstance, not in a tidier calendar, a more efficient app, a sterner boundary. No, the help you need is the awakening of the indwelling presence that governs all circumstance without strain. I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another comforter, that he may abide with you forever, for he dwelleth with you and shall be in you, not visiting you, not assisting from a distance, but in you. The axis must shift from outer props to inner authority. We live in an age of outsourcing. Therapists, mentors, systems, manuals, courses, committees, group chats, helpful, yes, honorable in their place, yes, but hear me with love and with frankness. A constant reliance on something outside your own realized consciousness becomes a denial of the Christ within you. As long as you believe the answer is finally in a practitioner's number, an influencer's post, a board's approval, a search result, you are quietly testifying that the comforter is absent and must be sent for as if by courier. The day is passing when you can count on sending a telegram to a practitioner and having your peace arrive by return wire. The day is passing when you can text a mentor at midnight and rent a conscience for the price of their reply. God has never been on retainer. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. And I add, lean not unto another's understanding either beyond what awakens your own. This is not a denunciation of good counsel. Oh, no. God can and does speak through books, through friends, through physicians, through seasoned minds and steady hands. But the moment of demand is the place of decision. Will you lean outward first, or will you turn within and let the Father within you do the works? It is not ye that speak, but the Spirit of your Father which speaketh in you. If that is to be more than a framed text on a wall, it must be practiced when the email alarms you, when the child's fever rises, when the doorbell rings and you feel the tug to hustle, fix, manage. In that split second, the training begins. A call is not only an invitation, it is a classroom. It forces the personal propensities into the open. Your habit is to reach for the phone, the browser, the plan, the rescue. Instead, reach first for the center. One breath, one turning. Father, I can of my own self do nothing. Speak, act, be here as thine own presence. That is not passivity, that is alignment. You will still make the call if it is yours to make. You will still drive to the office, write the reply, draw the boundary, but not as one who has outsourced their soul. You will do it as one in whom the Comforter has taken his seat and is doing the work through you. If I go not away, the Comforter will not come to you. The Master spoke of his departure, but he also revealed a law. As long as we cling to an external Christ, an outer Savior, an outer authority, we keep postponing the birth of the inner. So too with our props. If the personal sense of I, with its libraries and lifelines and lists, does not go away for a breath, how shall the Comforter come to this very point and prove that the kingdom of God is within you? The leaving is not abandonment, it is graduation into presence. Consider what happens when you meet the next demand from this place. The tone changes, the weight lifts, You discover you are not a private battery to be drained, but a transparency for an ocean that cannot empty. Words come that carry a quality not your own. Silence comes that penetrates where more talking would have multiplied noise. Movement arises without anxiety, or restraint arises without guilt. You are no longer negotiating between fears. You are consenting to the one who knows. Christ in you, the hope of glory. Glorious not in spectacle, but in steady sufficiency. Let us be very practical. Before you open the message, pause. Before you give advice, pause. Before you apologize or defend, pause. This is the whole art. That pause is not a delay, it is a shifting of government. In that pause, the comforter assumes the scene. Then act or do not act, speak or be silent, go or stay, but do it as one who has refused outer dependence and has said a deep, quiet yes to the inner authority. Every demand is your training ground, and with each faithful pause, the habit of leaning within grows stronger than the reflex to fetch help from without. And soon you will discover, almost to your surprise, that the very ones you once rushed to consult are now benefiting from the atmosphere you carry, not your opinions, not your cleverness, but the presence that has found a witness in you. We are not making heroes of ourselves, we are making room for God. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the works. When that ceases to be slogan and becomes substance, you will know that the Comforter is not a doctrine. He is a living government at hand, within, ready in the moment of demand. Lean there, turn there, trust there, and you will find that you have never been without help, not because you have accumulated helpers, but because help has taken up residence as your very life. Let us rest for a breath in the simplest picture the mind can carry into the busiest corridor of the day, the wave and the ocean. The wave is not a creature trying to be wet. It is not straining to invent water by personal effort, nor computing whether it can afford to hit the shore again without running out of substance. The wave is the ocean in motion. Its rise is the ocean's rise. Its fall is the ocean's fall. Separate away from the ocean, and it ceases to be a wave, only a theory remains. So with you, I and my Father are one, not two in fragile alliance, not a private self occasionally visited by spirit, but oneness indivisible, inseparable, one life, one mind, one love, showing forth as individual expression. Carry that into the hallway where a voice calls for you, into the screen where a need lights up, into the room where someone weeps and the old fear whispers, they will drain you. Oh no, let the metaphor correct the lie. You are not a private reservoir with a finite gallon count. You are the self-revealing of an infinite ocean. All that the Father hath is mine. If all that the Father hath is yours, by nature of oneness, then wisdom is not a personal trait you must muster. Patience is not a mood you must manufacture. Love is not a virtue you must squeeze from a reluctant heart. Wisdom, patience, and love are the qualities of the ocean, forever present, forever sufficient, forever expressing through the wave that consents. Now observe what this does to the feeling tone of help. When the personal I imagines it owns time and energy, service feels like subtraction, one more favor, one more hour, one more inch off your candle. But in oneness, help ceases to be lost because there is no separate owner to be diminished. Of his fullness have all we received, and grace for grace. Of his fullness, not of our stockpile. Receive and release, receive and release. This is the motion of the wave. The moment you tighten and say, this is my last measure of calm, my last inch of kindness, you have stepped out of the sea in belief and onto a little island of self, and there the drought begins. Step back. Consent again to be what you are, a transparency for the infinite to pour through at the point of need. But what if the need looks greater than your capacity? What if the interruption seems to ask for a wisdom you have not studied, a gentleness you do not feel? How did the wave cross 1,000 miles? Not by building a motor, but by yielding to the vastness that moves it. It is the Spirit that quickeneth. The flesh profiteth nothing. Flesh, personal will, personal cleverness, personal stamina cannot supply what the Spirit alone is. Therefore, refuse to meet the demand from that level. Acknowledge the ocean. Turn inward to the one mind that is already present in and as you, and let it know itself right there. Then the answer appears not because you became heroic, but because the ocean found an unobstructed wave. This is why the Master could say, without strain and without boast, the works that I do shall ye do also. He did not bequeath to us a private power, he revealed a principle. The wave does not compete with other waves for wetness, it rests in the fact of the ocean. You do not have to compete for love, plead for wisdom, hoard patience. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. When the next call arrives, do not carry the kingdom to it in a bucket. Let the kingdom carry you to it as a current carries its waves, sometimes to speak, sometimes to be still, sometimes to say yes with strength, sometimes to say no with peace. In every case, the giving is God's giving, the restraint is God's restraint, and you are kept intact because you are not the source, you are the evidence. Then helping becomes worship. You are not giving away your life, you are letting life be itself as you. You are not depleting a personal store of kindness, you are witnessing love find a form. You are not exhausting a private intelligence, you are letting mind articulate its clarity. He that believeth on me, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. Rivers do not worry about supply, they worry only when they forget to flow. Let us be the wave that remembers, in the very instant the door knocks, that the ocean is at the door, and that our only task is to open, yield, and let the infinite pass through the finite without obstruction. In that remembrance, help ceases to frighten you, and service becomes the joy of watching God be God. How, then, did the Master meet what the world calls emergencies? Let us ask it plainly, not to admire from afar, but to uncover the principle he lived by. How did Jesus feed the multitudes with 5 loaves and 2 fishes on a hillside at the end of a long day? How did he open the eyes of the blind who sat by the way begging? How did he raise the dead Jairus' daughter, the young man of Nain, Lazarus, though the censors had already signed the death certificate? How did he still the storm when wind and water testified to chaos and danger? Was it by superior technique? Was it by commanding matter with mental force? Oh no. It was by the capacity to perceive the presence of God's provision where sense reported only absence. By beholding spiritual reality where the senses announced emergency. Consider the hillside. The disciples counted loaves and saw not enough. Send them away, they advised. Good management, practical sense. But what did the Master do? He looked up to heaven and blessed and brake. In other words, he shifted recognition from the ledger of lack to the presence of infinite fullness. He did not fetch food from afar. He revealed that supply is the activity of God at hand. How did he feed the multitude? By seeing food where there was no food, to sense by recognizing God as bread, here, now, and letting that recognition become form. Consider the blind. How did he give sight? Not by injecting light into dark eyes, but by seeing sight where blindness claimed dominion. Receive thy sight. Thy faith hath made thee whole. He saw wholeness as the fact, blindness as the report, and he answered the fact. He met the interruption of a cry from the roadside not as a nuisance, but as a stage on which reality could step forward. How did he heal the blind? By the faculty to see that which cannot be seen sight as an eternal quality of the one life expressing itself, not a function of balls of matter. Consider death. On the way to Jairus' house, a woman pressed through and touched the hem of his garment. Who touched me? He asked. And in that pause, oh, mark it, in that pause, when others might have rushed past the interruption, virtue went out and she was made whole. Meanwhile, the child died by the testimony of the senses, and they said, Why troublest thou the master any further? But he answered, Fear not, believe only. And at the house, amid the noise of mourners, he changed the atmosphere. The damsel is not dead, but sleepeth. They laughed him to scorn because they were trained by appearances. He put them forth, entered a smaller circle of recognition, and said, Damsel, I say unto thee, arise. How did he raise the dead? By perceiving life where sense said tomb, by lifting his awareness to Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me before the stone moved, and then calling forth what already was in God. And the storm? Master, carest thou not that we perish? They woke him with panic, the classic interruption of fear. He arose, rebuked the wind, and said unto the sea, Peace, be still. Before there was a calm outside, there was a greater calm within. He recognized the government of divine law over elements. Harmony is the fact, and discord as a rehearsed dream. How did he still the storm? By standing in the one that cannot be shaken and letting that authority speak. Do you see the single faculty that ran like a golden thread through all these unscheduled scenes? He judged not by appearance, but with righteous judgment. He practiced take no thought in the very place where everyone else was taking all the thoughts the senses offered. He met interruption as invitation, emergency as sacrament, demand as the form in which the Father would be glorified. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. Therefore he could be stopped in the road without losing his mission, awakened in the storm without losing his peace, surrounded by hunger without losing his sufficiency. Now bring it home. Your interruptions are gentler in form, but identical in principle. The email that rattles you, the voice at the door, the child at midnight, the colleague suddenly, these are not detours from your spiritual life. They are the very altars upon which you practice the same faculty. How will you feed the multitude of tasks with 5 loaves of minutes? By looking up, by blessing, by recognizing the presence as time, as order, as sufficiency, here. How will you give sight in a meeting clouded by misunderstanding? By seeing clarity where confusion reports itself, and letting the mind that is God articulate through you. How will you raise the dead, hope in a voice grown weary? By refusing the funeral of fear and thanking the Father before you see a sign. How will you still the storm of your nervous system when the phone rings? By consenting to the inner peace, be still before you answer. Never imagine that the gospel scenes are museum pieces. They are mirrors. What revealed itself there reveals itself here, if the same faculty is active. Therefore, in the very moment of the knock, ask yourself the only question that matters. Am I seeing emergency or am I seeing God? Pause, turn, bless, and let the inner authority speak. Then whether bread multiplies or a kind word suffices, whether the sea is hushed or you are carried to shore, the principle remains. Jesus met interruptions by beholding spiritual reality where the senses reported emergency, and so may we. Now let us make this very plain, very workable. From this moment on, Never refuse a call, but refuse the personal reaction. The commandment is not to say yes to everything. The commandment is to say yes to presence in everything. There are, you see, two responses available at every demand. The first is inward, the second is outward. The inward response is non-negotiable. The outward response may be yes, not now, through another, or no, but the order must be kept. God first, form after. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Acknowledge first, and the path becomes clear. What does this inward response look like? It is a pause that changes government. Before a word, before a text, before a decision, be still and know that I am God. One breath, not to count to 10 is a technique, but to yield the scene. Father, I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the works. In that single act, you have already answered the real call. For behold, I stand at the door and knock. Refuse the pause, and you refuse him. Accept the pause, and you have opened. Then and only then let the outward form be given you. Do not be superstitious about the form. The same inner yes can dress itself as 4 different garments. Sometimes it is yes, I am coming now, and you find that strength meets you on the way, because strength is doing the going. Sometimes it is not now. I will return your call at 3. Until then I hold you in God's peace, and the situation ripens under a better government than your hurry. Sometimes it is through another, John will handle this, and you discover that the one mind distributes its own tasks without your pride or guilt. And sometimes, very gently, very firmly, it is, no, this is not mine to do, spoken without fear of rejection, because love does not coerce its wave to break where it is not sent. Let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. The clarity of that communication rests on the inner yes already given to God. Now let us be frank about what happens when we refuse the call at the inner level. We think we are protecting time. In truth, we are protecting the ego. We imagine we are conserving energy. In truth, we are conserving the belief that we are the source. We are refusing the chance to practice presence, to let the personal sense of I lose a feather and the Christ government gain a foothold. We are saying no to the blessing hidden in the demand, for every call is the Father's opportunity to glorify himself at the very point that frightens us. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. Let it not be said of us at the knock of this hour, will this make life busier? Oh no, it will make life truer. The outer total may not change, the calendar may still hold appointments, children will still wake at night, emails will still arrive, but the inner climate shifts from resentment to readiness, from dread to consent, from counting to trusting. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. Why? Because you are no longer carrying what is God's to carry. The fear that once drove a frantic yes, the guilt that once twisted a cowardly no, the pride that once insisted on doing it all yourself, these begin to starve for lack of attention. Peace enters first, and then right action follows without the old aftertaste. Let us practice now in intention, so that we may practice then in fact when the next ring, ping, or knock arrives. Do not answer the device or the door first. Answer God. One breath, one inward look, one acknowledgement, Father, thou art the doer. Speak, act, restrain, release as thyself. Then give your outer answer as it is given you to give yes, not now, through another, or no, and walk on free of the buzzing beehive of personal reaction. This is our two-response model. This is sanity. This is obedience. Never refuse a call, but refuse the personal sense that always wants to answer first. Say yes to presence in everything, and you will find that presence says yes through you in precisely the forms that bless, protect, and fulfill all concerned. Imagine it is very late. The ring is shrill because the house is quiet, a child's voice broken, frightened, or a spouse choked with overwhelm, or the report that a parent has fallen and is alone. In a flash, the body floods, the mind races, and a very old resentment is right there with its speech. Why now? Why me? I cannot do this tonight. That is the crossroads. Do not mistake it. At that instant, your first work is not to sprint, not to dial, not to shout instruction. Your first work is government, God's government replacing your adrenaline, and it begins with the pause we have practiced. Be still and know that I am God. Acknowledge the fear, do not fight it. Let it announce itself like weather passing a window. Then hand over the scene. Father, I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the works. Here, Father, you take this life. You are the life. He that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The timing is no insult, for omnipresence does not keep office hours. In that breath, the ownership shifts. It is not your child to save. It is God's life to reveal. It is not your spouse's sanity to patch. It is mind's poise to shine. It is not your parents' breath to secure. It is life being life right here. Then something changes subtly at first, and then with authority, frenzy gives way to clarity. The room feels different because the Prince of Peace has entered, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. From that shoulder your steps are ordered. You will know whether to call the physician or the neighbor, whether to drive now or to stay and keep the atmosphere of trust, whether to wake another child or let them sleep. You will hear with a certainty not born of panic the next right thing. It may be as simple as bring water, open a window, speak softly. It may be as urgent as go now, and you will go without that reckless edge that spills half your good on the floor before you arrive. Do you see that this is love becoming impersonal in the holy sense? Not cold, not distant, oh no, but free of sentimental panic. Perfect love casteth out fear, not by intensifying clutching affection, but by recognizing love as a presence that acts. Your voice will carry a tone that steadies the room. Peace, be still, will not be a slogan. It will be an atmosphere, and a feverish mind will begin to breathe in it. You may find yourself putting out those who laugh to scorn, those inner voices, and perhaps even outer ones that rehearse worst-case tales, just as the Master put forth the mourners, entering a smaller circle of recognition where life is acknowledged as the fact. And do not fear that stillness means inaction. It does not. It means right action without the waste of flurry. In this government of God, hands know where to reach. Eyes see what matters. Speech becomes few, exact, kind. If there is medicine to be given, it will be given without argument. If there is a ride to the clinic, the keys will be found because you are not tearing drawers in a storm of blame. If there is nothing to do but hold, you will hold as transparency, not as a human prop about to collapse. In him we live and move and have our being. Let your moving be in him, and you will not stumble over your own dread. Sometimes the outward picture shifts quickly. The child's breath evens, the spouse's sob breaks into quiet, the parent's strength returns enough to wait for help. Sometimes it does not shift at once. Do not be deceived by duration. Govern the atmosphere. Refuse to be drafted into the drama's rehearsal. I am the resurrection, and the life is not a line for funerals. It is the fact in the hallway at 2 a.m. Hold to it without strain, and keep step with the practical wisdom that unfolds. You are not performing a miracle. You are refusing to obstruct one. From this moment on, let family crisis be your altar of obedience to the two-response model. Never refuse the call. Answer it first by enthroning God, and only then by managing what is yours to manage. In that order, you will learn in the most tender place that love, purified of personal fear, is the safest pair of hands on earth, not because they are yours, but because they have ceased to be yours and are lent to the one whose government never fails. The Lord is my shepherd, I will fear no evil. Not at noon only, but in the night watch. Not when everything is tidy, but exactly when the house wakes to need. And there, in that holy hour, you will discover that the interruption was an invitation to witness the government of God. Now let us step into the place where many of you are tested daily, not at night, but at noon, not by tears, but by subject lines. The email lands like a stone, urgent. Your oversight jeopardized the launch. Or the calendar dings, join in 5, leadership needs answers, and the deadline has been moved forward by someone who did not consult you. Immediately the old warrior stands up inside. Defend, attack, control the optics. Oh no, recognize the call. This is not a summons to your personal cleverness. It is an invitation to let mind one, mind take the chair. Be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. The first response is not to draft a rebuttal. The first response is the inward government we have practiced. Father, I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the works. Hold it there for a breath that is more than a breath. Not how do I win this exchange, but what is the Christ-revealing response here? Not how do I rescue my image, but how do I witness the activity of God in this corridor of cause and effect? There is only one mind. Hear that not as a slogan, but as an operative fact. There are not two minds plotting at cross purposes, yours to be outwitted or theirs to be subdued. One mind governs, and it cannot argue with itself. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. The appearance says adversary. Righteous judgment reveals a shared mind seeking its right expression through all involved. Now watch what happens to language when you shift government. The draft that began to set the record straight quietly dissolves. In its place comes measured clarity. Thank you for flagging the concern. I'm reviewing facts and will return at 2 with specifics. Or perhaps the instruction is silence for the hour, not avoidance, but obedience to take no thought how or what ye shall speak, for it shall be given you in that same hour. The next right act may be a phone call instead of another volley, because tone carries grace, the keyboard cannot. It may be the firm line that says, this decision belongs with product, I'll support their call, free of resentment or retreat. It may be the simple, liberating confession, I missed that dependency, thank you for catching it, without the poison of self-condemnation. A soft answer turneth away wrath, not because softness manipulates, but because softness indicates you have ceased to run your own courtroom. You will find in such government that facts you could not see present themselves. The spreadsheet you needed surfaces. The colleague who holds a missing piece messages you unbidden. The meeting that threatened to be a trial becomes a workshop. Cooperation is not created, it is revealed. Why? Because you ceased believing in minds and returned to mind. And if, for a season, the outer tone remains sharp, you are not drafted into it. Your speech is always with grace, seasoned with salt, not saccharine, not evasive, precise, clean, unpunishing. You are guided toward the next right act rather than the next emotional discharge. Let us be very frank. This is not passivity. This is authority, the authority that refuses to let personal sense run the office. Not but conquers, not self-defense, but truth. Not point scoring, but presence. Not impression management, but God's order expressing itself as efficiency, honesty, and shared success. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. That includes your inbox and your calendar. You are not there to win. You are there to witness thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. And in the witnessing, you often discover that what looked like an attack was a cry for clarity. What posed as a rival was a role waiting to be rightly assigned. What felt like loss of control was the mercy that returned control to God. So, when the interrupting email arrives, never refuse the call, but refuse the personal reaction. Answer first within, Father, you speak as me or silence me. You place the word or the pause. You govern this meeting as order, this team as love, this project as intelligence. Then answer without hurry, without heat, with the exactness that one mind provides. Sometimes you will write 3 lines. Sometimes you will call. Sometimes you will wait 1 hour. Sometimes you will say, no, not this, and it will land as protection instead of provocation. And you will walk away not with the tremor of having survived a skirmish, but with the steadiness of having kept office with God. My yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Why? Because you are not carrying what is God's to carry. Work becomes worship when mind is recognized as the only mind in the room. Now consider the call that seems the least spiritual and the most inconvenient, the stranger's need. You are leaving the market with a list still half unchecked, and a man by the curb asks, could you spare a few dollars? You are rushing to an appointment and a woman stops you. Do you have a minute? I need a ride across town. Your inbox lights with a fundraiser, your phone with a number you don't know, your porch with a knock and a story. Immediately the schedule protests, the calculator starts, the suspicion whispers, is this wise? Is this safe? Is this a game? There in that tightness is the real interruption, not the request, but the belief that you are a private supplier with a dwindling stock, money, time, attention that must be guarded against raiders. Oh no, breathe. Let the government change before you count the coins. I say unto you, take no thought for your life. You are not the source of supply. You are the avenue through which supply may appear in right form. What is the economy of grace? It is not carelessness, and it is not calculation. It is recognition. All that the Father hath is mine. And therefore, if something is to be given, it is God-giving. God to God. Giver, gift, and given are one life, one love, one mind. Your first response, as always, is inward. Father, I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the works. Here, Father, thou art the source. Show the form. In that breath, the burden shifts from your purse, your clock, your fear, to the infinite that never measures itself by scarcity. Now you are ready to listen not to the story only, but to the presence that knows what belongs here. Sometimes grace chooses a direct yes, simple and unadvertised. You look the man in the eyes, you bless, you place a bill in his hand, or you walk him inside and buy a meal, and you go on without the old ache of being used, because you were not used, you were used of God. Freely ye have received, freely give. There is no ledger kept because there is no lender. There is only love finding a form that fits the need of that hour. Sometimes grace says, not now, and the not now is as loving as money would have been. I will not walk with you today, but I put you in the care of God's love. The shelter on Maple is open at noon. Sometimes grace acts through another. You make the phone call that connects the woman with the ride service. You send the link to the resource. You let the one mind distribute its own tasks without your guilt or pride. Sometimes, hear it well, grace says no, plainly, kindly, without contempt. This is not mine to do. Not hardness, no, never hardness, but healing clarity. Let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. The no that is born of presence carries no sting, it leaves both free. Consider Peter and John at the gate, called Beautiful. The man expected alms. They said, Silver and gold have I none, but such as I have give I thee. Such as I have is not always currency. It may be the quiet that calms another's agitation while you share a phone number. It may be the prayerful recognition that the true supply for this person does not come through your pocket at all, and you leave them with a blessing that is not a piety but a fact. God is here as your sufficiency. Give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down and shaken together and running over. Not a bargain with the universe, oh no, but the motion of the wave consenting to flow. When you give as transparency, you do not feel robbed, you feel aligned. Let me tell you how this looks in the street of any city. A young man asks on the corner. The old fear speaks, they'll spend it wrong. The schedule shouts, you're late. The inner government answers first, Father, thou art the source. In a moment, you know the form. Not cash today, food. You take him with you to the deli, you ask his name, you bless, you leave. No sermon, no superiority, no gossip to yourself about his choices. You have been the avenue, you have not been the judge. Another day, a neighbor wants your truck for the weekend, the same inward turn. The answer rises, no, the responsibility is not yours to carry. But the same grace adds, yes, in another form. Here is the number of a rental. I'll help you load. You say it without that inner freeze that injures friendship, and both walk away clean. Another time, a campaign appears on your screen. You turn within. The impulse is small, $5, and you obey without arguing that it is not enough. Enough is a concept of personal sense. Rightness is the principle of grace. Or you hear not now, and you trust it. 2 days later, the right cause arrives, and joy attends the giving, because it is God moving, God's own. Inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these, ye have done it unto me. Who is the least of these? It is the Christ in hidden form at your door, asking you to choose again between personal reaction and spiritual recognition. Never refuse the call, but refuse the personal sense that wants to answer first with suspicion, fear, or pride. Ask within, yield, and let the form be given. Yes, not now, through another, or no always without contempt. Then watch the economy of grace do what money cannot do and what busyness cannot fake. Restore dignity, reveal supply, keep you whole. The blessing will sometimes look like bread in another's hands. Sometimes it will look like freedom in your heart. Either way, you will have witnessed the simple law. Grace provides the right form of giving when you stop believing you are the supplier. Let us be very practical now. This responsiveness is not a mood you hope will visit you in a crisis. It is a consciousness you cultivate until it becomes the atmosphere you live in. You do not rise to the level of the interruption. You fall to the level of your practiced consciousness. Therefore, for a season, let us say 6 months, accept the holy work of training. The purpose of our work, as I have said so often, is the development of spiritual consciousness, the ability to see that which is invisible, to hear that which is inaudible, to feel that which cannot be touched. That does not appear by accident. It ripens under discipline. On waking in the morning, before your feet take the floor, before you read a line or touch a device, turn thought to God, not to a problem, not to a plan. Father, I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the works. This is thy day. This is the day which the Lord hath made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Acknowledge the source. Life is living itself here as me. Mind is thinking its thoughts. Love is the motive and the method. Feel gratitude not for things, but for presence. Pause long enough that gratitude becomes a climate, not a courtesy. If you need direction, take up a paragraph of our basic work, yes, pages 97 to 103 inches, The Infinite Way, and ponder until the words open into awareness. Blessed is the man. His delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. Then begin your day, but lace it with between practices. Before answering the phone, 1 second. Be still and know that I am God. Before opening an email, 1 second. Speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth. Before entering a room, 1 second. I and my Father are one. The wave is not apart from the ocean, it expresses. At noon, stop if only for 3 breaths, and acknowledge, in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. With every meal, whisper thanksgiving that is more recognition than ritual. Supply is God appearing. With every expenditure, confess, all that the Father hath is mine, and spend as a steward, not a worrier. He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much. These are not superstitions. They are changes of government in micro intervals until the government of God becomes the macro fact. In the afternoon, when fatigue would argue for shortcuts, renew the covenant. Watch and pray that ye enter not into temptation. Practice the 1 second listening again and again, not to gain merit, but to maintain atmosphere. In the evening, before closing your eyes, return the day, not as judge, but as witness. Where did I answer from personal sense? Where did I answer from presence? Loose it and let it go. Here, Father, you take the praise and the blame, the gain and the loss, the plans and the regrets. If I go not away, the Comforter will not come unto you. Let the personal sense of I go away for the night, and invite the Comforter to keep watch. He that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. At first this will feel like work. Oh yes, real work. The mind will say, this is too much. The schedule will say, there is no time. Remember the manna. It was gathered every morning, not stored in barns for tomorrow's convenience. So with spiritual atmosphere, gathered fresh, acknowledged anew, stay with it. In weeks you will notice you do not have to pull yourself back so often. In months you will discover the pause has become your native breath. This is the ripening toward that point I call transition, when truth begins to utter itself. When the phone rings and you find you were already quiet. When the email accuses and you find the answer forming in a mind not your own. When the knock sounds and you are not startled into sacrifice, but steadied into service. Pray without ceasing ceases to mean incessant words and becomes unbroken recognition. So give God 6 months of fidelity in the little A, morning turning, between practice seconds, mealtime acknowledgments, and evening surrender, and watch what happens to the sudden call. You will not rise heroically to meet it. You will fall gratefully to the level of a consciousness you have practiced until it holds you. And there you will find that spontaneity is nothing more than grace, trained to flow freely because you have ceased to dam it with neglect. Take no thought for the crisis. Take thought for the practice. Seek first the kingdom in the ordinary minutes, and all these things will be added: readiness, clarity, poise, when the extraordinary minute arrives. There comes a day quietly, without trumpet or bulletin, when the practice you have kept in the ordinary minutes ripens into a new kind of hour. You notice it not by fireworks, but by absence, the absence of scramble, the absence of inner shouting, the absence of that old searchlight looking for a technique. A sound arises, the phone, the knock, the name called from another room, and before thought has time to marshal its troops, something in you has already turned Godward. Reflex has changed allegiance. Be still and know that I am God is no longer an instruction you try to remember. It is the place you find yourself standing before you. Recall how you came there. This is what I mean by transition. It is the point where you stop trying to live truth and begin being lived by it. Up to this point, we have been faithful to turn, to pause, to acknowledge. We have laid the rails. Now the train has a life of its own. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, He doeth the works. The words that once felt like surrender now begin to feel like description. You are not performing composure, you are being kept. You are not assembling a prayer, you are hearing one. Less inner argument attends each moment. Less delay between stimulus and recognition. Less fear's commentary about outcomes. Instinct shifts from self-protection to presence recognition, and the old habit of bracing gives way to a readiness that does not tense. Outwardly, the evidence appears in small, unmistakable mercies. The sentence you needed is simply there, clean, unforced. Take no thought how or what ye shall speak, for it shall be given you in that same hour. The patience you thought you had to manufacture shows up ahead of you in the room, and a difficult person meets not your tolerance but love's atmosphere. A next step appears in order without your diagram. A solution reveals itself that you could not have designed. Phone calls cross in perfect timing. A resource you had not considered surfaces. A schedule arranges itself as though an unseen hand is keeping the book. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Not a searchlight throwing miles ahead, but a lamp right where your foot is about to fall. Do not imagine this is mysticism reserved for the few. Oh no. This is the comfort of functioning as promised. If I go not away, the Comforter will not come unto you. As the personal sense of I steps back, goes away, not in death, but in deference, the Comforter takes the chair. You will feel it as a change of government. The very faculties you have practiced listening, acknowledging, refusing the personal reaction are taken up into a larger life, and my sheep hear my voice ceases to be poetry and becomes the way you recognize your next faithful act. This is not trance, not special talent. It is the ordinary fruit of turning within so regularly that within becomes your native address. Sometimes you will test yourself and find that you cannot reproduce it on command, and that is the mercy. The ego cannot bottle grace, but the pattern will be clear. When you take no thought for your life, no anxious pre-living of conversations, no hoarding of strength, life takes thought for you. You wake into a day and discover you are not carrying it. You are being carried within it. The wave has ceased trying to push the ocean. The ocean is moving the wave. All that the Father hath is mine stops sounding like a fortune to be drawn on and starts feeling like a current to be yielded to. And yes, there will still be moments that test. Old reflexes will occasionally jerk. Fear will knock with its familiar drum. Do not call this failure. Simply return. Acknowledge again, quickly, gently, Father, the works are thine. In that instant, the old machinery quiets, and the living presence resumes its office. Over time, you will see the transition is not a day circled on a calendar. It is a dawning that becomes noon. It is the Comforter getting his way in you until what once was a discipline becomes delight, and what once was an interruption becomes the place truth utters itself in real time. Open thou my lips, and my mouth shall shew forth thy praise. You will find that they open at the right moment with the right word, and sometimes not at all. And every choice, speech or silence, bears the single mark of the one who now lives your living. Now let us stand precisely where this transition is tested, not in the chapel, but in the ring of the phone, the shout from another room, the unexpected name that appears on your screen just as you had sat down. Hear the Master's apex instruction, not for after the crisis, but in its very center. Take no thought for your life. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Take no thought where, in the middle of the ringing phone, in the gust of interruption, where personal sense would hurry to rescue, to explain, to manage outcomes. Which of you, by taking thought, can add 1 cubit unto his stature? Which of you, by carrying the whole situation on your back, has ever added 1 ounce of true order? Oh no. The first obedience is to seek the kingdom, God's presence, before you let the voice leave your lips, before you let the fingers touch the keys. Burnout, in spiritual terms, is not too much work. It is wrong government. Burnout is the exhaustion that comes of believing that you are personally responsible for outcomes, that you must be the source, the strategy, the stamina, and the success. That is Martha's burden. Martha, Martha, thou art careful and troubled about many things. The symptom is hurry within. Even when the body sits still, the sign is resentment. Even while you say yes, the fruit is depletion, even when the task is done. But hear the correction. 1 thing is needful, and Mary hath chosen that good part. The 1 thing needful is not idleness, it is inner order, presence first, then action from that presence. How is this lived in the moment of demand? The phone sounds. In that fraction before you answer, let the government change. Father, I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the works. I seek thy presence first. Do not misunderstand. Take no thought as paralysis. It is consent. Take no thought how or what ye shall speak, and for it shall be given you in that same hour. The words do not come out of your private storehouse. They are given in the hour, the tone, the pace, the yes, the no, the not yet, and then action. Sometimes you pick up at once and speak 3 clean sentences that untangle a knot without accusation. Sometimes you let it ring into voicemail and return it 10 minutes later with the light you did not have before. Sometimes you say, not mine, and delegate without guilt because love is distributing its own labor among its own members. Grace is not doing nothing. Grace is doing what is yours to do without carrying what is God's to do. As thy days, so shall thy strength be. Not as your anxieties, not as your imagined tomorrows, but as this day's actual demand, so shall the strength appear. You will find, as you practice this right seeking in the instant, that activity remains but burden lifts. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Rest is not a couch for the idle, it is poise for the faithful. You will answer more accurately with less aftermath. You will do what takes courage without the hangover of self-importance. You will say no when no is obedience, and it will not fray your nerves, because outcome is returned to God. You will discover efficiencies you never could have manufactured, not because you pushed harder, but because one mind ordered its own affairs. Remember the wave and the ocean. The wave that tries to push the ocean is panic, and we'll call it productivity. The wave that yields to the ocean's motion travels farther with less strain and calls it grace. When you seek the kingdom first at the point of interruption, you cease running a private utility company for the universe. Supply, insight, timing, these things are added as forms of the one presence recognized. Cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. Cast it before you speak. Cast it in the ring, not after the call ends. And then, with hands free of what is God's to carry, take up what is yours, the clear word, the honest step, the merciful boundary, the cheerful correction, and discover that my yoke is easy and my burden is light is not rhetoric for Sabbath days, but law for Thursdays at 2:17 p.m. So never refuse the call, but always refuse to meet it from personal sense, Seek first, speak second. Yield first, move next. Let the hour give you its word, and in that rhythm you will not burn out, for there is nothing left to burn. The personal sense of I has gone away, and the Comforter has taken the chair. Let us close this hour as we began it in the sanctuary of the presence with a surrender that is not fatigue but faith, not abdication but acknowledgement of government. Quiet yourself now, not as a technique but as a recognition. Be still and know that I am God. Whatever the day is laid on your shoulders, time, pressure pressing its clocked face against your heart, the small resentments that have nibbled at your peace, the fear that more demands are coming than you can meet, the suspicion that there will not be enough strength or enough wisdom, let us gather these, not as enemies, but as mistaken claims, and let us loose them and let them go. Cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. We are not dragging a sack to the altar. We are discovering that the altar has always stood where the sack was. Now, aloud within yourself, place the whole parcel in the only hands. Here, Father, you take the health, you take the strength, you take the supply, you take the relationships, you govern this day. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the works. Thy will be done. Do not keep back a corner of it for private management. Loose the calendar and the outcome. Loose the need to be seen as generous or efficient or right. Loose even the story that you are tired. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Want of time, want of love, want of wisdom, oh no. In this very yielding, sufficiency stands revealed, not as an influx from outside, but as the natural order of oneness. The wave that yields to the ocean does not drown. It discovers its motion. Feel how the atmosphere changes when the burden goes back to its rightful owner. The chest softens, the forehead cools, the edges in the room round into kindness. You have not added a thing to your resources. You have remembered that you are not the resource. All that the Father hath is mine, not as possession to be counted, but as presence to be trusted. In this recognition, a benediction takes shape not as words only, but as law over your day. Never refuse a call, but refuse to meet it from personal sense. Never refuse a call, not because you are indispensable, but because God is present and available in every moment. You are not consenting to be spent. You are consenting to be transparent. The same Christ that met wind and wave, that paused for the woman who touched the hem, that looked at 5 loaves and saw sufficiency, is the one that will answer through you as you stay yielded. So let this be our seal and our sending. The next interruption, phone, knock, question, email, becomes your altar. Do not hurry past it. Pause 1 sacred second. Acknowledge, Father, here too thou art the life, the mind, the love. Listen. Take no thought how or what ye shall speak. It shall be given you in that same hour. Then let the work be done within you before you lift a hand or shape a syllable. Act only from that inner yes, that inner not now, that inner no without sting, that inner through another. In that rhythm there is no depletion, for you are not hauling the river, you are letting the river run. My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Let your weakness be honest enough to invite his strength, and you will find that his strength has been the truth of you all along. We give the day back to God now, this one day, not tomorrow's fantasy, not yesterday's memory. We give the people in it back to God, the tasks in it back to God, the results of it back to God. We go out with empty hands and a full heart, not to do great things, but to let the great do what is his in the small. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, just where the next footfall is. And should you forget and pick up the sack again, do not scold. Simply loose it and let it go once more. Here, Father, You take it, keep us, govern us, speak through us, and let every interruption henceforth be recognized for what it is, a meeting place with presence, where the invisible becomes visible and the inaudible gives the word for the hour. Amen.